Good morning, and thank you, Anja Monrad, for joining us with Berit Sander. My name is Stephane Guerraz. I am a management consultant and university lecturer focusing on innovation, culture, and finance. And Berit?
Yes, I'm Berit Sander. I'm a business psychologist and a consultant, and I work in the field where humans' relationships are important in business life.
And we are delighted to receive Anja Monrad today. And may I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Anja Monrad, as you said. I have been in the IT industry for my whole career. I graduated from Copenhagen Business School and ended up in IT. I've been in American companies like Digital Equipment Corporation, like Compaq, like Unisys. And then I spent the last 23 years of my operational career at Dell Technologies. Big part of that in global marketing roles, doing everything from consumer marketing globally to small and medium business marketing. And then the last years of my career, I spent managing the commercial business for Dell Technologies, first in Eastern Europe, managing the 32 countries in Eastern Europe, and then after that, the Western European business. And then last year, I stopped my operational career, so to say, and embarked on a professional board career. So I'm now serving on a couple of different boards, from privately owned to listed companies, a couple of more like Conor Moore activities, and then I've also done some angel investments, primarily with companies with female founders.
Wonderful.
So I guess that's the long, short introduction.
And so, seen from your experience, having been at the top of the corporate ladder and now as a board member, what would you say are the main differences between those operational roles and now that new life as board member?
Wow, I think the biggest difference is that you are actually not executing anything in the board, right? You're there to define vision, strategies together with the executive team, but you have more high-level discussions about future things and less about the here and now. That said, obviously, if there's a crisis, you get pulled more into the here and now and day-to-day things, but mostly it's the longer-term things that are being discussed, and you're just that one step away from the daily operations.
Might there be one focus area that you miss from your operational life? Now you are in a more kind of generalized.
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't about running away from something, but it was more a question about trying something different for the next maybe 10 years of my life. So I knew there would be some things that I would leave behind. And one of that thing is the sense of people and team and belonging. And for me, in my role, one of the most important things throughout my career have been actually being a leader and developing people, being part of a team and seeing that team succeed. And that you leave behind, because even though you're in a board and you meet differently from 4 to 8 times a year and you spend some strategy days together or maybe a board travel, you never really get into being a team. So yeah, I miss having people ask me Monday morning how my weekend went, but even more importantly, I guess I miss seeing people grow under my leadership.
Just taking a step back on the operational career in time, you've had many positions of increasing importance, and I was wondering how did you decide to take certain next steps, next opportunities, and maybe even more importantly, how did you decide not to take some opportunities? Because I'm sure you must have been contacted, many times by headhunters for other opportunities to which you said no. So how did you make those decisions?
Yeah, I guess the very smart answer would be, I had this fantastic career plan that had it all laid out and I just followed the plan. But that's actually not the case. Although I did have a lot of planning. I did have a lot of ideas on what did I want to learn and achieve. And I kept, every time I got opportunities, to look at, is this going to be an area where I can add something and actually contribute and be a success? And on the same time, is there a big portion of this job where I can actually learn something new that's going to build my next step? Because you're right, you get a lot of offers throughout your careers, and often those offers are, in many of the cases, they're not balanced between what you're going to learn and what you're going to contribute. Because people go to you because they want you to come and contribute something specific, right? And make a change somewhere and use your experience. And you kind of like, but I've done that a couple of times before, and that's why we want you. It was like, yeah, but I'm not going to learn anything new from actually doing that, right? So I think I've always looked at, can I be successful? What is my what am I gonna attribute to this? And then on the same time, what is that part that is gonna bring me forward to something different? And so that has kind of been the guiding principle for changing jobs. But in the end, most of the opportunities have actually just come. You've been doing something, you've been good at doing something, then there's a change somewhere, and you get an opportunity to move on. It wasn't really a laid out plan. So
the eagerness to learn and to connect is a strong driver in you. I learned a weird English expression, and I might connect it to you. Are you a daredevil?
I have a high tolerance for risk.
Exactly.
So I like change. I like taking risks. I don't know if I'm like totally leaving my brain behind and going totally daredevil but I know that if you want to see progress, if you want to see change, you automatically gravitate to taking more risks. And I learned throughout my career that every like 3-4 years, I start getting a little bit bored in just maintaining the status quo of what I do. So if I wasn't moved to something new where I could utilize that energy and that skill, I would start to stress my organization by changing, not for the sake of change, but I would start seeking out opportunities to change things. And that's not necessarily always the answer, right? So it's I learned to control that obviously throughout my career, but yes, I'm looking for something new, something different that we can test out, and then crash and burn. If it doesn't work, then you can always go back.
That's interesting, that risk appetite that you are describing, because to me, and because I'm thinking of that because you worked a lot for US companies, and that's also to me a feature of the US culture that tends to be less risk averse than let's say some European cultures.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's part of why I thrived in that environment. It's because it is, in my opinion, way more a culture of agility, of innovation, of trying and trying to create a culture where you learn from mistakes fast and then you move on. It sounds obviously a little bit more rosy than it was in today, and nobody likes failures and things, but there is definitely more focus on learn from your mistakes than avoid making mistakes. You just don't want to make the same mistake more than once, right? So I think there's something in the American culture on that
we might benefit learning from in Europe.
I definitely think so. If you just look at the whole entrepreneurial area, in the US, it's definitely been seen as you have to go bankrupt and fail a couple of times, get some learnings, and then rise from that. I think here, if somebody have gone bankrupt with a company, that's a stamp where you're like, oh, that's a failure. And obviously, yes, it is a failure because nobody plans to go down that route, right? But sometimes it's a failure that actually gives you so much more learning that without that, you wouldn't have been able to catapult into the next thing you want to do, right? So I think when in some of my angel investments, in some of the companies, they have actually pivoted from one strategy to something completely different. And when they say that, some people react like, oh, but that's because you didn't have, your shit in order, and apologies my language, but and then you turned and you invented something different. Or in my opinion, is actually, hey, we had a great idea, and then it turned out that there was something that needed adjustments, and we were not stubborn enough, and we were good to get like input and feedback, so we decided to do something different. And that's actually a good sign, because that shows that as the market change and world change, they're actually going to be able to change it and adapt again, right? So there is something in the culture of how we see things.
If we boil that down to individuals in career, could you transform your experience, what you just explained to us, into a good advice for people to be aware of building their career?
Yeah, I guess, the one thing that is, as I said before, I focused a lot on is that balance between contributing and learning. So make sure that when you go somewhere in your next job or your next step in whatever, if it's internally, externally from your company, is like what is the legacy you're bringing with you, or the experience you're bringing with you that's going to make you successful in this. And that obviously have to be a big portion and the majority of what you bring in. But then also, if you want to continue developing, you have to have something new. And I tend to see a lot of people, there is a bell curve. Obviously, most people are in that middle section where they balance what they contribute and what they learn. But there is also a big portion of people that don't want to go into something new unless they really feel that they can do everything in that space. And then it's like, but then why change at all? Obviously maybe you get more salary, but that's, a small part of it. But then I think there is this smaller group that are super, super ambitious that come and say, hey, I would love to work here because I would like to learn. And then you ask, but what are you going to bring? And they're like, not really anything, but I really like to learn. And from time to time, it's worth picking up one of those and say, okay, then I'm going to take you under my wings and teach you, because they have the energy and the passion and the capacity to grow, right? But I think people should really look at that balance and keep finding that new thing.
Wonderful. And you mentioned as an angel investor working in particular with female entrepreneurs. And of course, the numbers in terms of fundraising from female entrepreneurs in Denmark are abysmal, compared to the importance of that they should have. So can you speak a bit about the bias that they face, and maybe how you help or mentor maybe those female entrepreneurs to overcome those barriers?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, obviously there's less female entrepreneurs, and then you can discuss whether it's a chicken and egg thing. Is it because there's less funding going that there are less, or a female's more risk adverse, they don't want to start businesses? There's a lot of things, but roughly 1/4. I think it's last year's numbers was 27% of all female all startups were female founded. Of the funding, it's less than 0.1% that actually goes to female only companies. Then there's a 8 that goes to mixed founded companies, and the rest 89.8% goes to male only founded companies. So it's more difficult to get funding, hence it's probably more difficult to get going. But there's also, so I think there's a couple of different biases that I've experienced going to pitch events and being in the environment. and the ecosystem. One is that males, and they're mostly male investors, obviously, tend to question females on their ability to understand and drive the business. So it's really check questions. Just like they wouldn't really believe that a female could run that business, right? So there's like, do you understand your numbers? Do you know what, how are you going to get profitable? It's very much that checking thing. What's the market? How big? Whereas the male founders often get asked, it's like they believe that, yay, they understand all of that. So now let's go question their ambitions, their visions, where do we want to take this? Take me on a journey with you to the next step kind of thing, right? So when you then, after those pitch events, kind of think, what would I invest in? You hear one presentation being very much about, the here and now, and this is what I do, and the other being about the journey I want to bring you on. Mostly would gravitate to that whole ambitious thing, right? So I think there's something we're driving, we're self-inflicting the outcome of pitch events by the way that we actually ask questions.
So it's a setup. It's a setup against female entrepreneurs, almost. Not unconsciously, of course, but
it becomes a little bit of like that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And then the other thing is, and that's where women still tend to develop products that are relevant for women. And that's if you're a good businessman, you would go, a woman, you would kind of go, who cares who the product is for, as long as there is a market fit and I can make money out of that product. But men tend to go, I can't use that product, or I don't understand that service, so there can't be a market for that. So there's kind of a conclusion going, I don't feel that on my own body. Hence, it's not relevant.
You mentioned men do that.
Men tend to kind of look at, I don't believe, or I don't feel the need for that type of product. Hence, I'm not really sure there's a market fit. Because I don't know anyone that has that problem. And you're like, yeah, but you're not a woman. and this is actually a product that addresses half of the world's population, right? So I think that there is, the other part is that, what are the products? Can they understand? If they understand, are they comfortable with what they're actually understanding? So if it's like more health products for females, if it's menopause, if it's kind of things that they can't relate to, it becomes unpleasant and to engage in. And which I think we need to overcome that as well.
It sounds to me, taking just my finance brain, that it's a very inefficient market, if that's the case, and that therefore investors in female businesses should have almost like a higher chance of making a superior return. So the logical thing as a finance guy, would you say, well, this is where I should go invest?
If you look at the stats, that's what you see. It's good business to invest in female-founded companies, right? The return on investment is higher. I can't give you the number here and now, but the return on investment is higher on female-founded companies. So yes, from a financial point of view, just forget all of your biases, whether you understand the product or don't understand, on yourself the product. If there's a market fit, who cares if you're in business for the sake of making?
Why is that not general knowledge? Why is it not known out there that women are actually, when it comes to reality, more successful, but in a much smaller scale?
Yeah, I think it comes back to bias again. Do you believe in the stats? You can pull, I think, like 90% of all research done about it's good to have diverse team. It's good to have diversity on boards. It's good to have, and yet people go back and say, yeah, but you can argue the numbers, and I'm not really sure, and that probably don't work with us, right? So even in areas where there's so much research being done on diversity, people are questioning the numbers. So here, there's a lot of questioning the numbers, but can you really say it's because it's a female founder? Can you really say it's because it's that, So but yeah, I don't, I wish I knew the answer, because then we could go and change it overnight, right?
But there are maybe a provoking hypothesis is that women might develop the ability to speak up more and be more loud about success.
Yeah,
Could that be an issue?
it's definitely part of the problem, and I hate to say the answer is for women to lean in more and to change and be different. But it is part of the problem. It's also part of the answer. I think my marketing background taught me very early on that there are different audiences, and each different audience, you're going to get most out of your marketing dollars by speaking into that audience's understanding, needs, and segmentation. And it sounds a little bit provocative to say, but in every communication you do, you should think about what is your audience and how do I come across to that audience in the best possible way. And then again, balance that with being, in my opinion, authentic and yourself, because you don't want to change and just be something you're not. But you can have your opinions and the way that you want to say things. But just think about, if Stephane is a finance dude, then he would react to a different pitch than somebody that's more team and organizationally oriented. But if both of you are sitting in the same audience, your pitch needs to address who's our team, how are we working together, what is the plan for developing our organization, and then here's the numbers, right? So if you don't think about who the audience is, and if women tend to underplay their own success because they talk a lot about, they don't want to brag and they don't want to talk too much about themselves, then you're going to lose out on some of those audiences.
How come it's provocative to raise that issue?
Yeah, I don't know if it's if it's directly provocative, but I think that there's this whole discussion about being authentic and being able to bring your own self and not having to change to be successful.
Good point.
But I think, yes, you have to be able to bring your own self and be yourself and not having to change. But it is common knowledge that people, are different. And if you want to get something out of something, you have to understand who your audience is, right? So there is this balance, I guess.
Yeah, you need to connect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Are there other pieces of advice that you tend to give to female entrepreneurs when you work with them, again, to just help them to go towards success, and specifically for them as female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I guess it is about, most about the communication part. It is about, raising their voices and driving their business, but also in some of the cases, taking a little bit of emotions. Not that men don't have emotions, but I think that a lot of the females that I've worked with tend to very early on build a team, and then that team becomes also who have been with them from the beginning. And then, maybe not being as hard on, you meet people for a reason in a time, and maybe those employees are not going to be there for the rest of your journey, right? So I think don't treat it as a baby, don't treat it as a hobby. It's a business. And I think the successful entrepreneurs that I've worked with definitely would never say their business is their baby. You hear a lot of women say, but it's just like my baby. It's like, no, it's a business, and you should treat it like such and take out some of those emotions out of it, right?
Looking back, is there anything with your experience you would have done differently about how you led your career, about the choices you made?
I think it's super important to just caveat, because we're all different, right? So what worked for me may not work for anyone else. And it's a combination of the person and the situation that, the opportunities arise in. I spent quite a lot of time in my early days thinking a lot about how others would perceive me, how I should change to fit in rather than just being myself. And I guess as you grow older, that is just so much easier to stay and stand grounded in who you are. But I think I don't think I've spoken with any seasoned leader who doesn't say, I wish I just shortcut all of that insecurity way back, right? And just stop spending time and about thinking what everyone else thinks, and just do what you think is the right thing to do. And it sounds so easy. And even today, you know, I find myself going into a new setting, a new room, and kind of going, oh my God, am I going to fit in? What can I contribute here? And maybe they all think, you know, I don't fit in or I don't belong here. And you know, just let go of all of that, because there is a reason why somebody trusted you with whatever job you have. And then just, yeah.
And if you let go of that, then what? Because then you could say you don't spend that energy worrying about fitting in, and you have more energy to do what you are here to do.
Yeah, if you have 100% energy and you spend half of it thinking about what could go wrong, and, you know, how am I going to mess up, and, you know, all of that, it's just like, forget about all of that. Nobody's going to die. Everything is going to be fine. Just focus on the task, right? And then 5% energy on, you know, the audience who's there, and how do I make sure that they actually, but it's the balance of, you know, just all the time being concerned, and that's both female and males. It's like, you know, just let go. But I don't know if it's possible to shortcut. It's like, but that the more you can, the better.
And the earlier
you can. Yeah. And then the other thing, which is probably a very controversial advice, is get fired early on in your career, because then you actually get the experience of, you know, having to go out and find yourself another job. And that's going to take the fear away of always thinking that, you know, I'm never going to find another job, so I better, you know, just suck everything up that here if things are not working. I think the people that I know that have tried to lose their job, have found another job, are way more calm in, you know, whatever's going to happen next in their career, because they know they've proven to themselves that it's not the end of the world, and I'll just find something else that may turn out to be better, right?
So it helps nurturing the risk appetite, which is necessary to develop.
Exactly.
Good point.
That was a very concise way of saying what I tried to say. But yeah, thanks for that.